Previously on Spenelli Speaks. Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Carolyn Criado Perez. Hi everyone, Danny here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing my January wrap up. And is it just me, or does it feel like January was like months ago? I don't know. I'm only in like the first week of February, but when I think back to all of the books I read in January, I feel like it was really far away, like it was a long time ago. I don't know. On that note, I'm really happy that I ended up doing a bullet journal because I have written down all the books that I read in January, as well as their format and my rating and everything. Otherwise, I would have had to sit down and think about all of that stuff. I mean, I haven't even put anything into GoodReads yet. Like, that's how bad I've been. I've been so busy like doing other things and getting things going and reading all these books that I've like totally slacked in some of the areas that I was doing okay with last year. So I don't know. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. I hope you've hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell. Comment below, what books did you read in January? Let me know. If you've been around the block a few times, welcome back. It's nice to see you, and I hope you're commenting below so I can say hello to you as well. So let's get into this bullet journal and talk about the books that I read in January. Now, the first book that I read, I did do a rapid review for, and that was Mitch Albom's The Timekeeper. I did enjoy this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I did something a little bit different this year for my ratings. Instead of just giving a blanket rating and just kind of going with my overall like or dislike kind of rating, I've kind of made 3 different categories to give an average rating. So I'm rating books on content, meaning how was the writing style? Was it a good writing style? Creativity, meaning were they giving me something new, something I haven't seen before? And then lastly, engagement. And that just means for me personally, like, did I really like it? So that's kind of like how I was rating books last year. Like, ooh, I really liked that. Oh, I didn't really like that. So this I am hoping will help with, you know, rating books appropriately. For instance, here's a great example. Last year I rated The Selection 5 stars. Now, 5 stars for me on engagement. I loved those books. They were so good. But after a while I was thinking like, okay, like the writing style and the content, I mean, that's really not a 5-star book. I mean, for engagement, sure, but not like, you wouldn't be able to compare that and like Crime and Punishment and then rate them both 5 stars, because I mean, Crime and Punishment is written way better. Like literary devices, there's more content in there. So that's what I mean by like trying to do this way to try to be more fair in my rating. So overall, for The Timekeeper, I rated its content a 3. I felt like the writing was good. Creativity, I liked the theme. I thought I had not really seen that before, so I liked that. And then the engagement for me was a 4. So overall, that's a 3.6, which anything past the 0.5 would just push into the next category. So that would be a 4, since GoodReads doesn't let you do points. But that was a 3.6 for me. Pushing it into the 4 stars. So essentially, The Timekeeper is about Father Time and his kind of journey in helping 2 earthbound people. One who doesn't really wants more time, and one who wants time to slow down. So it's really a book about learning about the importance of time. It was a really great read for the beginning of the year. You know, it's a new year, fresh starts, and you really, it really gave you a opportunity to think about your own time and how to appreciate every moment. The next book that I have on my list here is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Now, if you've been following my channel or the group who has been reading this, we recently did a live on Noah's channel, Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse. And we talked in great depth about this book. We could have probably talked about 3 more times in in more areas of the book. But overall, for that book, I did give it a 4 on the content. I thought the writing was great. A lot of literary devices, a lot of places where you could really dive in. Creativity level, definitely a 5. Never been seen before. It's a classic. It's in its own way. And then engagement, I gave it a 2. I really didn't enjoy it. I feel like in small snippets, I enjoyed it, but overall grasp, it was not the book for me. I guess for me, there was just too much, like, misogynistic views. It was very like a man's man kind of book, and it just overall just didn't settle with me very well. Now I also have a rapid review on this, and even in that I am kind of all scattered because overall the book is a book that you really need to spend a lot of time dissecting. It is about a specific family in the course of 100 years, and there's a lot of generations that are within that, many of which are named the same name, so it's kind of deciphering who's who. There's a lot of weird things that happen. It's full of magical realism, which is the main thing that you probably hear about this book. There's a lot of politics, there's a lot of like colonialism, there's kind of growing, the story starts with a village that hasn't even been created yet, and you see it start with this family and then grow into, an industrial town in the time that it's in. And it's just, there's just so much to unpack in this book. And for me, there was too much happening, and there were certain things that were developed, but certain things that weren't. And I think I would like this book more if I were to just take one chapter at a time and just completely dissect it. But that's a very studious way of reading a book. So for just pure engagement, pure interest, pure enjoyment, I would give it a 2. So that's how this rating scale gives it a fair rating, because it did have great writing style. It had great content. The creativity was definitely there. So instead of me saying, oh, this is a 2-star book, it's not a 2-star book. I just personally didn't like it. So that's why overall, it then does get that 3.6 rating, which pushes it into the 4-star. So 4-star book. If you're interested in reading it, it is a classic. It's, one on its own. There's nothing like it, that's for sure. But take your time. Take your time reading this book. And definitely find something where there's notes so you can understand, certain political things that happen. It's a book written by a Colombian author, so you have a different place in the world, so understanding that is very important as well. And my biggest recommendation is to read this with another person or persons, because the more you get from other people's perspectives, the easier it is to actually understand the book as a whole. So I'm very sorry that was very long-winded, and I'm going to move on to the next book. So the next book that I read in January was The Princess Bride by William Goldman, which you should see a rapid review coming out soon on that. This book I wanted to read originally last year. I think it was one of my first books that I had on my TBR, and I just never got to it. And then for my book club, we are doing all books that have film adaptations, and this was our first book of the year. Now, my book club had a lot of really mixed reviews on this book. If you don't know, this book is a metafiction. So it's a story within a story, and then it's also a parody. So when you start reading it, you are getting the perspective of William Goldman, the author, and he's talking about how he's going to abridge this classic fairy tale by this Morgenstern character from Florin country or whatever. And you really are under the impression that this is a real story, and he's really abridging this classic tale. Here's the thing. No, it's all fiction from the moment you open the page. William Goldman has created himself as a fictional character, writing this abridgment about a fictional fairy tale. So in the beginning of reading this book, my book club, half of my book club was like, what are we reading? What is this? where's the original story? We were all Googling it. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then some of them in my book club who had already read this, who knew, they were like laughing at us, not like in a mean way, but they're like, no, it's not. It's all fiction. So after you get over the whole you've been duped phase of reading, you really get to dive into the story. It's about Wesley and Buttercup and true love and their pursuit of happiness. There's duels, there's fighting and fencing and all that fun stuff, adventure. And I would say for the book itself, you know, there's a lot of things in the book that aren't in the movie. Now, I've seen the movie several times. I very much love the movie. There are characters in the movie that I just absolutely adore. And in the book, very much the same. William Goldman did the adaptation as well. So he wrote the screenplay. So it's a very comparable, like exact lines are taken from the novel and are put into the movie. Obviously not everything can make it to the screen. So if you are one that really loves the movie, I do recommend that you read the book because there are backstories of Inigo Montoya and Fezzik that are just wonderful. And especially for Inigo, who's always been a very favorite character of mine, I feel like The Princess Bride, his story is the most developed. We really get a true understanding of his character from childhood on into present time. So I really felt like his story was the most developed and the most interesting, and he was really what was pushing me forward each page and learning more. Now, there are a lot of introductions from this William Goldman abridging this book. It's in all italicized. Some of those can get a little bit long-winded, but essentially the story is pretty good. So that story I end up giving 4 stars. I gave 4 in content, 5 in creativity, and then 3 in engagement. And I gave it a 3 in engagement, which realistically is still that I liked it, but I also was like really bored by the italicized pieces. Like I just wanted to get past that and get through the story. The next book that I finished in January was a buddy read with my friend Laura over at Book Bubbler. We're doing a year-long read of a series of books by Lauren Willig, and the first in that series was The Secret History of the Pink Carnation. I really liked this book. It was super fun, easy read, just something that you could just sit down with and just simply enjoy. It's basically about this graduate student who is living in London, and she's trying to find out who the Pink Carnation is. Who the Pink Carnation is known as a British spy who is helping in France to help like revolutionaries, because they're just basically cutting everyone's head off. So she's writing a dissertation trying to unmask the Pink Carnation, and she meets this family who, in their lineage, they are the ancestors of the purple gentine, I think that's how you say it. Anywho, so she's asking them, because obviously they all were a band together, a league of spies, to read through manuscripts that they have. So you have that timeline, which is very brief. You don't see a lot of Eloise. And then the rest of the book is following Amy, who is wanting to get to France to help the Purple Gentine. And then you have the Purple Gentine, who you know is Richard. And then they're kind of like getting to know each other, and at first she doesn't know that that's him, and yada yada. Don't worry, those aren't any spoilers. You find all of this out right away in the book, but you kind of see how that unfolds and who the Pink Carnation is, which I'm not going to tell you that. That would be a spoiler. So for that book, I did rate it a 3 in content, a 3 in creativity, and then a 4 in engagement. So again, 3s are still really good, but again, this is, you know, a nice, cozy read. It's not, you know, reinventing anything. So I'm not going to be unfair in rating and say, yes, it's a 5-star. It was good, and I'm continuing the series, and I'm excited to continue in the series, but I would still rate it a 3 in those areas, and then absolutely a 4 in engagement. So overall, that did get a 3.3 in my ratings, which gives it an overall 3 score for GoodReads. Now the next book is book number 9 in my CJ Archer series that I'm listening to on audiobook, and that's the Glass and Steel series. And book 9 is called The Imposters Inheritance, and this book was wild. Like, there was so much going on as far as like the proper way of doing things and land ownership and stuff. And I don't want to get too far into details because obviously this is book 9 in a series, so I don't want to give too many spoilers away. But if you are interested in a kind of magic and like 1800s London and that kind of stuff, it's super fun read. Again, it's book 9, The Imposters Inheritance, and it's part of the Glass and Steel series. So I'm not going to talk too much about it because obviously with it being so far in the series, I don't want to give spoilers away. But overall, I gave it 3 stars all the way around, so an average of 3 stars from me. The next book is a graphic novel, which you may have seen the rapid review for, and that is Castle Waiting Volume 1. This was fun. I really enjoyed this book, and I think the only criticism that I gave it in my rapid review was the fact that it's not in color. It's all just the color of the page and then black pencil for the drawings. Now, being that it's like a medieval work, I totally get the aesthetic, but at the same time, when I read a graphic novel, like I really want to see color. I really love that about it, and I feel like the vibrancy in this story would have been so awesome. So that's really my only criticism, but overall, I thought the story was great, and it really covers a lot of ground. The volume is pretty thick. But basically it's about this Lady Jane who escapes, it sounds like a pretty violent situation with her husband, and she escapes to find this castle waiting, which is basically a sanctuary for individuals who need a place to stay. They're super, open arms when she comes. They're very good people, and they take her in, and she's pregnant, and they help her kind of with the baby, and you find out that the baby isn't her husband's, it's her lover's, and you just learn more about each of these characters. It's really interesting. I'm going to read the second volume, which I had here, but I had borrowed it from my library, and when I went to go and renew it, because I didn't have time to get to it, I couldn't. Someone else had it on hold, so I had to take it back. So I might circle back on that one sometime later. But for that, I did rate it a 3 for content, a 4 for creativity, and a 4 for engagement, which means it came up with that 3.6 again, which is a 4-star rating for GoodReads. The next book I also have a rapid review for. Boy, I got a lot of rapid reviews in this month, or actually last month, whatever. But that was How to Read Literature Like a Professor by Thomas Foster. This was great. I enjoyed listening to this. I listened to this every morning when I went to work until I was done, obviously. And what was really nice is it had a lot of ways to see literature for what it is as far as literary devices and what you could see and what writers often place in books, like Christ figures or what fire means or like certain things like that. So there's certain pieces of like symbolism, irony, and those kind of things in there. Now I will say, and I said this in my rapid review, if you are not well versed in a lot of literary fiction or classics, don't be surprised if you're like, wait, whoa, there's a lot of spoilers. I have never read Anna Karenina, but he exposes a huge plot point in that book, which I, as a reader, would be like, oh, no, well, now I know that. So now, when I was going to probably try to read Anna Karenina this year, I probably won't. I'll probably wait like at least 5 years so I can forget that little nugget of information because it's a huge piece of the book. So there were pieces that I was like, oh, come on. And I had read a lot of what he was referring to. So I was like, oh boy, I'm surprised you're saying that because that's like a huge piece of the book. So there is that. And I understand that if you're helping people understand how to read literature and you're giving them examples, I understand how that could be hard. But I feel like there could have been ways that he wasn't giving like the major plot points away. I feel like he could have used different examples, but that's just me. So for that one, I did give an overall rating of 4. Again, I gave 3 for content, 4 for creativity, and then 4 for engagement. So overall, that was a 4. Then I read another nonfiction audiobook. I also did a rapid review for this, and that was Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. And boy, can I tell you, that was a fantastic read. Really eye-opening. Like I said in my rapid review, if you do not like numbers or data, this book's gonna be hard for you because it's packed. She really gives you a lot of information, and a lot of it is data driven. The subtitle of the book is Data Bias in a World Designed for Men, I'm pretty sure. So it's, yeah, she means it. It's full of data. Now, this book itself just covers so much ground as far as how there are data gaps between men and women. She gives a lot of examples, for instance, examples that I never would have even thought about, like snow removal is gender biased, and medical testings of drugs and things like that. You know, typically it's tested on a average man instead of both sexes. So our bodies, you know, obviously break things down differently. And there was a thing about a car Bluetooth that in my rapid review, I mentioned that, and that was just fascinating. You know, even using the toilet in different countries, it just sets these women up for, you know, assault and murder. And I was blown away. And realistically, a lot of what she was saying just made me feel so like dumb for being so naive of how privileged I am to feel safe. I felt so just perplexed by the fact that when I think about using a public restroom or just a restroom outside of my own home, I don't feel afraid. And that blew me away. I will say there were a lot of really graphic stories in there. So if that's something that kind of is not your jam, do note that that particular chapter was hard to get through in some pieces. So, but overall, if you are at all interested in gender bias, it's a fantastic read. So for that, I did give that an overall rating of 4, as 4 for content. It was written well, but it was just like jam-packed full of data. Like it was hard to get through for me at some times because it was like a lot of data and I was like, whoa, like back up. But 5 for creativity. I thought it was like well in there, and then 4 for engagement because I did love it, but at the same time it was hard to like listen to it sometimes because it was just a little bit like, whoa, that's a lot. So now the last book that I read in January was another one of those Glass and Steele audiobooks, and that was book 10, which is The Kidnapper's Accomplice. Now this one was action-packed, let me tell you. The one criticism I would have for this particular book, and I hope this isn't too spoilery, but what happens in this book is there are like the villains, they want the main character to do something for them, and they basically say they're going to blow something up if she doesn't do this. And the thing that they want her to do, like, it's traceable. So even if she did what you want her to do, at some point the police are gonna come for you. So it was really annoying to me that it was like, you're not anonymous. We know who you are. The police know who you are. And even if, you know, India does this for you, you can't go and like keep doing what you're doing with that thing. I know that was really vague, but if I explain it, then it gives away a lot of things that happen in the middle there, and I don't want to do that, because if you really want to read the series, which I really like it, so if you're interested, please be sure to look for that, CJ Archer. But it was irksome the fact that these people thought that they could just get something from her and then go on their merry way. Like, that's not how it works. So that was a little annoying for me. Like, that didn't make sense for the book. But overall, I really did like it. So I gave it a 3 in content, 3 in creativity, and then a 4 in engagement, because I was really like, I was gripping the edge of my seat most of the time throughout this book. So overall, that's a 3.3, so it gets a 3-star rating on GoodReads. So overall, I did read 9 books in January. 3 of those were owned, so I can take those off my TBR pile, or my TBR shelves, that is. 6 of those were borrowed, so either audiobooks or library books. 5 of those books were physical reads, so actually physically reading those. 4 of those were audiobooks. And 1 of those was a graphic novel. So that doesn't add up to 9, but that's because physical and graphic novel I must have added it twice. So the graphic novel is the physical. 7 were fiction and 2 were nonfiction. I had 6 4-star reads and 3 3-star reads. Though, if you look at my engagement score, it looks like I had 6 4 stars, 2 3 stars, and 1 2-star. So that's where that fairness comes into play, where I really am trying to be fair about my ratings, and giving these books a fair shot. So tell me, have you read any of these books? What did you think? I'll try to link all of the rapid reviews that I had for those books in the description, and then you can take a look at those as well. And then for February, I'm pretty excited because I was supposed to read The Mistress of Spices, which I didn't get to, but I did start reading it. I'm about 70 pages in, and it's not what I expected. So I'll tell you all about that when I'm done with that one. And then I also was supposed to read The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, and didn't even get to open that one either. So I'll have to figure out when I'll be able to read that one as well. Needless to say, it was a good reading month, but it's not the reading month I thought it was going to be. I definitely got really sidetracked with reorganizing my shelves, as well as the bullet journal for the first time. So a lot of that took a lot of my time. So it was like full weekends where I was just working on that stuff. So I wasn't getting a lot of reading done. So that said, I feel like I still did a pretty good job on getting 9 books read. Well, until next time, I hope you are reading something great, taking care, and staying safe. As always, you know how it goes. Happy reading. Bye. Next time on Spenelli Speaks, William Goldman's The Princess Bride.